Hello colorful quilters and welcome to Color Girl YouTube. I'm popping in today for a quick video because I just got these new ombre fabrics in from Moda for the website shop, and they are so pretty. I've always really liked the ombre fabric by Vanessa Christensen, and I love that they've been coming up with patterned ones now. Like the solid ones are fabulous, but like there's polka dots and I think maybe there were stripes at one point, but this year the new one is these bloom ones. They've got kind of a little sun print pattern that fades along the edge, along the fabric with the color. So anyway, I was super excited that they got here, and I got them up on the website. But I wanted to make something with them. One of the things that I think is super fun about these ombre fabrics is that you can basically use just a few fabrics, but you get several different colors in there because of the way that they go from dark to light. So I got out my 60-degree triangle ruler, and I'm just going to do a really quickie like baby quilt or something today, just to see how these look. I did already cut a few triangles, and I'm going to show you how I cut these and then how I'm going to sew them together. So if you need a little quick project or just something fun to play with really beautiful fabric, this is a really good one for that. So check these out. I just literally cut a single width of fabric that is 6 inches. So a 6-inch strip by the full width of fabric. But I really like seeing how, because of the ombre, the way that the color fades from the outer selvage edges of the fabric to the center, how you get a really pretty variety. You almost get like a watercolor effect because it's a really nice subtle shift in the color. So I'm thinking if I cut a bunch of these triangles, I'm going to cut them from different colors. I'm just going to use all 5 of the colors that I have and just cut one single width of fabric strip 6 inches. And see how it looks when I go to put them all together. Now obviously this is just 2 colors, so it's not going to be quite the same as when I have more. But do you see how cool you get like that watercolor effect where the fabrics are different like that? I'm thinking since one strip isn't going to make very many triangles, I'm going to add some stripes in it. So when I'm doing the cutting, I will show you some of the stripes too, because I think it'd be kind of cute to do like every other one a solid color like this and then every other one a stripe. I have a few not close by. I have a few of the zip stripes also from Moda that are really cute, kind of like a paintbrush irregular stripes. So I have those in lots of colors. So I'm going to pick some out that go with my ombre bloom fabrics and mix them in. So hopefully this is going to be really pretty, and I hope that you'll sew along with me. So let's start cutting. Okay, this is designed to be a super quick project, and that means every step is going to be quick. So I am just cutting 6-inch by width of fabric strips from each of the fabrics. I'm doing 1 strip from each fabric, and then I'll see how big that is at that point, and maybe cut more if I want my quilt to be bigger, if I'm really loving it. Maybe I'll add more fabrics along the way too, but we'll see. So I have a selection of these stripes, which I totally love. And then could probably actually use one of these also to bind the eventual finished quilt. So that's something good to think ahead. And then I also have 6-inch strips of my ombre fabric. So I have, let's see, 4 stripes that I picked out that I think kind of go with these. And then I have 5 of the ombre. So I think this is going to be a really pretty color palette. And best of all, super quick to cut these triangles. You do need a 60-degree triangle ruler. I have this Easy Angles. It's called Easy Equal 60-Degree Triangles by June Taylor. I do carry these in the shop on my website at colorgirlquilts.com if you need to pick one up. They are really a fun shape to play with. I use them for all different size triangles. I'm going to try using them for like hexagons, cutting them just with part of it to make a hexagon. So lots of fun things that you can try. I've been in kind of a hexagon and triangle mood lately. So I think that's why the first thing I thought of when I wanted to make a quick project to show off these pretty fabrics, I thought, let's go 60-degree triangles, kind of big ones so that we can really see the fabric. So I'm going to cut 4 triangles at once, just by stacking 2 strips on top of each other. And I promised these were going to be easy, and you are going to see how easy. So I've got a 6-inch line on my template on my triangle. I'm just lining that up with one side. And for this first one, I will cut both sides. Oh, and set those scraps aside. So that gives me 4. And then I can just move down my strip, make sure that those are still really lined up nice and even so that we get straight pieces. And then just take my 6-inch line and line it up again where the angle of the first cut ends. And then I can cut 2 again. And that's going to give me 2 sets. So total of 8. And do that again. And you can just keep doing this as you move down the length of your strips. I was able to cut 11 of these triangles for each width of fabric strip. So you really do get a pretty good amount from each one. So go ahead and keep cutting these down the width of your strip and then move on to the next one until you have them all cut. Okay, once you have cut all of your triangles, or at least gotten a good start on the triangles, we need to cut the pieces for the edges of the quilt. So I'm going to use this kind of off-white, almost kind of a stone color for the edges of my quilt. So only the colored part will be in the triangles. So what we're going to start with for this is a rectangle that is 6 inches by 5 3/4. And I chose that measurement because I wanted to leave a little extra fabric on the ends so that the triangles end up kind of like they're framed, like they're floating in the inside of the quilt. So what I did was I've got the 6-inch, which is the same as my triangles. And then I'm going to, so I want to orient my fabric on my cutting mat so that it's 6 inches long ways going vertical away from me. And the 5 3/4 is parallel to me. So I'm going to come back to my 60-degree triangle ruler, use my 6-inch line just like I did when I was cutting my triangles. Only this time I'm cutting kind of an angled line through the middle of the rectangle, and that gives me this extra fabric on either end for kind of a bigger seam allowance. That's what I mean when I say that it's going to give it a little bit more edge to the quilt rather than having the points of the triangles end right at the binding. So I'm going to measure this, just make sure that I've got it kind of roughly equal. It looks like about 1 1/8 inches up here and about the same right there, 1 1/8 inches, 1 1/8 inch. And I'll go ahead and cut that 60-degree. Okay, so that will give me 2 end pieces. Since I'm using a solid fabric and it doesn't have a front and back, it doesn't matter as much the angle that I cut. But if you are using a fabric that is that has a front and back, you'll need to cut some of your rectangles going from upper left to lower right and some from upper right to lower left, so that when you finish the edges of your quilt, you have them going the right angles. Okay, with solid color, I can just turn them over, but with a right and wrong side fabric, I would need opposite ones. Okay, so figure out the number of rows that you're going to make for your quilt. You can always sew all the triangles first and then cut your ends. That way you'll know exactly how many to cut depending on the size quilt that you plan to make. Okay, so again, that measurement is a 6" by 5 3/4 inch rectangle, and you are using your 60-degree angle to cut 1 1/8 inch from each corner. Okay, let's start with sewing our triangles together, and then we'll do those end pieces. So let's go to the sewing machine. After I finished cutting my pieces, I laid them all out on the floor in my sewing room. I don't have a very big design wall, so I just went ahead and laid the pieces out. You can see I decided to alternate the stripes and the ombre prints, and just kind of mix up the shades of the ombre, so the dark and the light are just all kind of mixed up. You could also choose to arrange them like from dark at the top to light in the middle and back to dark at the bottom like it is on the fabric, but I'm going to do mine randomly. So I've picked up the pieces for the last row and match those together. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and start sewing them into rows. Okay, so I have my first row of triangles matched up in pairs. So it goes a solid, then a stripe, a solid, then a stripe. So I'm going to first sew them together in pairs, and then I will continue to add, like press them and then add the next pair until I have a whole row, just like you would with any other quilt blocks when you're sewing them into rows. Now I do have bias edges on these triangles, so I'm going to be really careful as I'm sewing that I don't stretch or pull the fabrics, but really it's simple. All I have to do is put the triangles right sides together and use my 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew that angled side. Okay, so I'm going to sew a couple of these. Now, if you want to just sew yours together randomly, you don't even have to lay them out like I did. You could literally just like take a pile of your triangles and just start matching them up 2 at a time, and then press those and then sew those 2s together into 4s, and then sew the 4s together until the rows are as long as you want them to be. But so here is my first set. So you can see when I go to press it, I'll just press to one side. I'll probably do like odd number rows, I'll press to the left, and even numbered rows, I'll press to the right. But basically, this is what I'm going to get, is this unit that now is a diamond shape, but the next one is just going to go next to it, and I'll just keep adding those. As I was sewing these to get these triangles together, I realized there is a point that is important to make that some of you as beginner quilters may not realize. So I've sewn my pieces first in pairs across the first row, like I told you before. And then when I go to match the pairs together to make them into 4s, I wanted to show you how when you line those up, you're lining them up with the triangle before the seam allowance was made. So to say that a little more clearly, you are going to have about 1/4 inch of the new piece that hangs over and matches up with the seam allowance of the previous piece that you sewed. So it might be tempting, if I turn this around to the right way, it might be tempting to line that triangle point up right with the edge of the fabric, like this. so that that point is right at the corner. But when you do that, you're going to be starting to sew up here, and when you sew your seam and open it up, you're going to have a chunk out of your piece there. You won't have nice straight sides. So go ahead and shift that so that the corners overlap slightly. It's going to be about 1/4 inch, so that on each end, when you start sewing, you're sewing both layers of fabric all the way from the beginning of the seam. Okay, so it's going to kind of make 2 little dog ears at the top. So that's how you sew these triangles together once you have a seam on one side and they're not just the full triangles anymore. Okay, so make sure you do that so that your rows are nice and straight. Okay guys, we are coming along. I have sewn rows, and I wanted to show you one more thing before I sew my rows together and finish my top. You'll notice when you sew the end pieces, the ones that I did in white, to your triangle rows, that you end up with a little bit that's overhanging. It's about 1/4 inch. It's kind of like how when you sewed the triangles together, you had that 1/4 inch dog ear. But with this piece, since I extended it to make them a little bit wider, that continues and makes my row uneven. So what I'm going to do is simply take my ruler and rotary cutter and cut that piece off, because you'll notice the rest of my strip is nice and straight and is going to fit into the next one. So if I go ahead and just cut that piece off on each of my pieces, then they are ready to sew together. Okay, so just a quick thing to finish off, and then we can go back to the sewing machine and sew our rows together. And I'm super excited to see how this is all going to turn out at the end. What do you think so far? All right, let's get these rows sewn together and finish our top. Okay guys, we did it. How about seeing the final quilt and how it turned out? What do you think? I'm really happy with this. I love the simplicity of the mix of color and stripes and just the big triangles. Tons of fun. And I think a design that you could use in any of your favorite color combinations. If you have a fat quarter bundle from your favorite designer or collection, or just a variety of prints from your stash or scraps, this is going to be a really fun project to sew up and use some of those and turn them into a fabulous quilt. And besides, it's really pretty fast and simple. So I hope you've enjoyed making this with me, and I hope that you'll join us again for another project. In the meantime, if you've sewn with me or enjoyed this video, please leave a comment and like the video, and subscribe to Color Girl Quilts here on YouTube. Don't forget, all of the fabrics that I used in this project are available on my website in the shop. It's colorgirlquilts.com, and you can also get the 60-degree triangle ruler, which is super handy for cutting these triangles accurately and making them nice and quick. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed watching, and until next time, see you later.